Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Go to Bolt fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, it is Chiefs week. Therefore, I am obligated to grace your screens with the glory of the Derwin James, Travis Kelce body slam tackle. Oh, I'm hoping to see something like that again. I know Derwin James, who's been called the hardest hitting safety in the league by none other than Josh Allen. I'm sure he wants another crack at Travis Kelce this week. It's Chiefs week, baby, and it's a big one. I know there's a lot of Chargers fans, and myself at times thinking this way too, that I've kind of written off this matchup. The Chiefs are 11-1. They got all the refs in their back pocket. It feels like an impossible matchup, even without that being the fact. There's a meme community revolving around the last-second wonky victories of the Chiefs. I don't know, man. I think the Chargers got as good a shot as anybody to win this week. Yes, even other than the Bills. I think there's been other teams that have had a good shot versus the Chiefs this season. They don't look like the same 11, or I should say they're 11-1 team, but they don't look like the same Chiefs team of years past. And I do think the Chargers, like a lot of other teams, have a good shot at taking them down this week. It just kind of, revolves around the surrounding circumstances, I think, a lot of the times here. But you know what? The Chargers have a chance. It's an interdivision matchup. It's one that's going to be very, very important for the Chargers going forward, ushering in the Jim Harbaugh way, the new era. There's a lot on the line here, and I think the Chargers shouldn't be written off yet by anybody. I think there's a lot of folks out there that believe the Chiefs to be an unstoppable powerhouse. I'm here to tell you the Chargers are one of those teams that need to be on their radar as a threat going forward. We're going to break this one down with you guys. Before we do, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Guys, this is the week. If you've been waiting to get your toes wet, if you've been waiting to try out the glory of Underdog this season, guess what, newcomers? We have a Justin Herbert special for y'all. All new players will receive a Herbert free pick, in which, of course, you guys want a little extra help. I'll be posting some picks this weekend as well. On that game. Sunday Night Football should be a lot of fun. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
The Chargers at Chiefs, Week 14 game preview. I need to start writing down the weeks because I always get caught off guard and then I think to myself, oh my God, the season's almost over. And I get a little heartbroken. Well, now it's time, baby. The Chargers late in the game have some big implications in terms of their record, in terms of the postseason, in terms of who they are as a team, as a squad in their first season behind Jim Harbaugh. Of course, right now 8-4. The Chargers facing an 11-1 Kansas City Chiefs team is going to be a pretty tall task, but one that does offer a season-long benefit of, okay, now we understand where the Chargers are. This is how they stack up against the Chiefs. This is what the future's looking like. And right now, I think even going into this game versus the Chiefs, there is some reason for optimism based on our last matchup, based on the Chiefs season, based on the whole AFC environment as a whole right now. It feels like there's an opening for the Chargers, and it feels like they're starting to step up into a very realistic contender as we progress in the Jim Harbaugh era. Before we do get into the meat and potatoes of this specific matchup, who's in, who's out, bit of a cut and dry, actually, injury report to go over this week. Some exciting faces to see back, in the possibility of playing with the Chargers. Junior Colson getting some limited practices in. We have Cam Hart maybe back in the fold. He would be an awesome corner to see back on the Chargers. Daiyan Henley getting a limited practice in. I was a little bit worried with the do not practice on Wednesday, but hoping to see him suit up. Ladd McConkey, who was banged up last week, he's been limited. There's reason to think that he will be playing, per his words there. And then Denzel Perryman, hoping to see a return this week. So a lot of optimism, I would say, from the Chargers with a lot of players that we were hoping would make a return. Looks like we're on the track, on the road for that. And it would be a really big contrast to the last match. You guys remember the last matchup versus the Chiefs? Oh, Derwin James was suspended. We didn't have both our starting tackles. Injuries galore. It was awful. It was a tough one. It was an uphill battle, and yet the Chargers made it interesting. So let's see what the Chargers look like when they get some new faces, some familiar faces back in the lineup this week. As for the Chiefs, again, very cut and dry. The only one that's a maybe is, Jawan Taylor, and even then, he's probably going to play. So there you go. I feel like it's going to be a mostly healthy, both sides teams, in terms of what to expect. Nothing too unexpected this week in this matchup. So let's get into why I think, and why I'm not crazy, why I think the Chargers do stand a pretty good chance versus this 11-1 squad of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, like I mentioned at the top of the video, okay, my first point here is going to be called the Chiefs Mirage. Okay, there is, I would say, it's not even an unknown at this time of the season. I feel like most NFL fans that are not Chiefs fans will tell you that they don't look as threatening as their record may indicate. 11-1, respectable. At the end of the day, these guys don't care. Reed doesn't care. Nobody cares. 11-1, fantastic. They got a chance to clinch the division, I think, pretty closely in this game, right? I think they've already got the playoff spot locked up. Like, there's a lot to be optimistic about if you're a Chiefs fan, and a really good reason to put on the blinders and say, hey, haters gonna hate. You know what I mean? But on the other side, as an opponent, as someone that's looking for these opportunities to locate weaknesses, to exploit weaknesses, to find angles to take down what has been a juggernaut Chiefs team for the past several seasons, you take a different perspective. The blinder's not on, and you got to look at what it is for what it is. And the Chiefs right now at 11-1 don't look like the Chiefs of the past. And this is something that's funny because I catch myself saying this the last, I would say, 2, maybe 3 seasons, right? The Chiefs look vulnerable in some way, shape, or form, and yet they always find a way to win. Now, in a season for me as a Chargers fan where the norm is becoming broken, right? Jim Harbaugh is rewriting what the norm is for this team. All of the stigma behind the Chargers' last-second losses, it feels like that's slowly dissolving away. The Chargers being a poorly coached team, that's completely out the window. The Chargers not being a legitimate threat versus juggernaut teams like, the Kansas City Chiefs, that's also dissolving away. This is being rewritten before my very eyes this season. It's something that's very legitimate, something that the rest of the league is recognizing and understanding, and it makes me believe in the changing of narratives within the NFL as I see my own team, change their path and change their identity. And I feel like there is a legitimate changing of the guard, coming up. And I've said this the last couple of seasons now. But this time, honestly, Jim Harbaugh, what he's been able to accomplish, the Chargers individually are already a threat. And then seeing what the Chiefs are kind of looking like right now, even at 11-1, it makes me feel like, as an opponent on the other side that's looking for weaknesses to exploit, I see opportunity. And it feels like this season in particular, it could get messy for the Chiefs later down the line. It really could. Like, on one hand, the Chiefs have always been kind of a late team to me, figuratively in like fourth quarters of games late in the season. They're still a threat. Obviously, nobody's taking them for granted here, right? We're not. But at the same time, like, it just feels like this 11-1 squad going into the postseason, it's not going to be as well prepared as other seasons that we've seen for the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's where I want Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers to knife in a statement game this week. I don't know how much it moves the needle for the Chargers in winning the AFC West to take down the Chiefs at Arrowhead, but it sure as heck would move the needle. And hey, watch out. This is a rivalry that's real. This is a rivalry that's going to thrive the next couple of seasons at least. The Jim Harbaugh versus Andy Reid, the Justin Herbert versus Patrick Mahomes. Like, this is something that the Chiefs, as they praise their 11-1 season and they say it's legitimate and all that kind of, they got to look at the Chargers and say, hey, 8-4, which some teams are saying our 8-4 is not as legitimate. You got to take a look at it for what it is and say, hey, these are two squads with a lot of wins. They're in the same division, very well coached, very well quarterbacked. Something's changing and something's happening. And with every week that I feel like the Chiefs squeak by, the Chargers, they find more ways to win. Just like the Chiefs, we're always squeaking by, finding ways to win. The Chargers starting to adopt that kind of same energy, that same culture. And at some point, they're going to meet down the line where it feels very evenly matched. And this could help indicate that this week. It could. So don't be too intimidated by the Chiefs this week, is all I'm trying to say. This team, it's not the same team. 11-1 is respectable, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. But as an opponent on the other side, I see weaknesses. I'm ready to exploit them, and I do look at it as a very winnable matchup for the Chargers. Kind of get into the weeds of that. The Chiefs' offense. Okay, let's get into why the Chiefs 11-1 doesn't make sense. Chargers can maybe knife in there. Chiefs offense this season, to me, if you've watched a game, even if you've watched a red zone broadcast, it'll tell you that the Chiefs are not the same team, even from last year, which last year wasn't as crazy either. You know what I mean? They're kind of mid. Chiefs offense kind of mid this season, right? They're around the middle of the pack in every stat imaginable. 19th in rushing, 12th in passing, 15th in total offense. Like, really? Middle of the pack. Nothing too special here. Pretty insane, actually, for an 11-win team. I think the point margin, too, for this squad was somewhere in the 50s. At 11-1, that is the worst point differential in, I think, very many, maybe even of all time. I don't remember. I think at least in the last 5-10 years or something. I think the worst was the Falcons years ago. And they were at 88 points. Chiefs now in the 50s. It tells you that, there's a lot of things surrounding that their offense is being picked up with. That's helping them generate these wins. Right? They're even... Dudes, this is actually a stat that kind of blew my mind. The Chargers have been a pretty bad red zone team this year. The Chiefs blow even harder than the Chargers in the red zone. They're 24th. I think the Chargers were somewhere in the low 20s as well, like 20, 21. But the Chiefs, an even worse red zone offense than the Chargers. Keep that in mind. The one stat that they'll beat you in, though, and the one stat that remains very consistent, whether it's help from the refs or whatever, one thing that they are very, very consistent at, that no other team in the NFL can say they're better at than them at, is going to be third down conversions. They dominate in that one stat. They are number one in the NFL. They are very tough to stop, and this is why Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have remained a very legitimate threat offensively, and they're never out of it, what I should say. Those third downs, almost impossible to stop them. The Chargers, fortunately, could be a team that offer a little bit more pushback. They've been a little worse for wear these last couple of weeks in terms of third down conversions. But hey, you never know. They could really turn it on Sunday Night Football. So Chiefs offense, Travis Kelce, not the same. This is by far and away, I think, his worst season statistically. They're kind of running through receivers. Is Juju still there too? Yeah, right. They got a couple of guys out there. Xavier Worthy, I think, probably being considered the one right now. Noah Gray has been more or less okay. That's just kind of this offense right now. They just kind of feel okay. They're okay. And obviously we are not in a too different of a situation in Los Angeles, right? The Chargers offense is bad. I wouldn't even say okay, we're bad, but the Chiefs offense isn't anything to be too intimidated about. They're just okay. They're nothing crazy. And that's something that, again, the Chargers, I would say at this point, have an advantage. They have a okay offense versus the Chargers' very, very good defense. Hey, there's one edge for the Chargers. Gives you an angle at maybe winning this game. What about the Chiefs defensively? Well, the Chiefs defensively, albeit they have some good players, like there's very few interior defensive linemen that I respect more in the league than Chris Jones, are also kind of okay. They're mid. They're okay. I would say their defense is better than their offense, right? But they're just okay. One stat that they're not great at, passing defense. They don't have a great passing defense. They allow 220-plus yards per game passing. That's certainly not the best in the NFL, right? They give up a lot of third downs as well. As much as the third downs that they generate, they give up a lot of third downs too. Definitely a stat that they would like to improve. They also don't generate a lot of sacks. As good as Chris Jones is and how crazy he always plays against Justin Herbert, they suck at sacks. They suck at takeaways in general. They're tied. I think it's 27th. They're ranked 27th in both of those stats. 27th in sacks, 27th in takeaways. They are not a very good defensive unit when it comes to making big plays that way. The Chargers are. This team, not so much. One thing they are very good at, though, and it is going to affect the Chargers offense, Chiefs defense, very good at stopping the run. They're third in the league in in slowing down running backs. The Chargers are trying to be that run team. It's going to be very difficult this week. Chiefs a very good run defense. I remember this from our first matchup. They allowed 50-something yards to the Chargers in that matchup. Absolutely insane. And that's back when we had J.K. Dobbins. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. Chiefs also a pretty decent team in points allowed. 8th in the league. Chargers the first, but could end up being another defensive matchup. Okay? But one thing that... I'm not going to escape this video without a million comments of people asking about it, so we're going to address it right now. One thing that is going to help the Chiefs, that the Chargers really have no control over, that I'm going to bet will end up being a pretty big point of emphasis in this one, just because of the trend this year, is going to be the refs, the officiating, right? It's been a trend. At this point, I don't know how much we can meme it. If you can go back and record it and actually take down stats of situations that have kept the game going, that have made it more favorable in terms of the Chiefs winning by a large percentage, taking a loss, turning it into a win. There's a lot of them this season. The refs are a meme stat for the Chiefs, but an honest one this year. And Chiefs fans hate it when you bring this up. Oh, you guys are just crying. This and that. Sore losers. Good teams can overwhelm or overcome the ref stat. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want to hear it. This is a stat that the rest of the NFL, that everybody, other than Chiefs fans, are tired of seeing. It's like being in a fever dream, watching the Chiefs get bailed out every single game by the refs. It could be, a condition where, you see somebody successful and you want them to be unsuccessful. Sure, that could be part of it. But at this point now, like, you watch every Chiefs game this year. I posted a meme about it way back, like week 5, of that scene from Cars, right? Where the bad guy, what was his name? Chip or something? Chip? I don't remember. The bad guy car. He wins because of his scumminess. You know what I mean? At the end, and they're at the awards ceremony, he drives out onto the stage like, hey, yeah, look at me, all right, hey, where's the Piston Cup? Woo! And they like slide it over, and he's like waiting for all the pictures and celebrations. Like, why is the only one celebrating is me, huh? Come on! And everyone's just looking at him with like a straight face, like, man, scumbag. It feels that aura is there every win this season for the Chiefs. Everyone's sick of it, but it's also a stat that, like, honestly, you can't hide from it if you're a Chiefs fan, dude. I hate the Raiders as much as the next guy, but could you believe the end of that game, man? Last second flag fiasco. That was a would-be loss for the Chiefs against the Raiders. Easily. Chiefs driving. They need the 3 points to win. The refs completely blew that opportunity for Vegas, right? There was an illegal timeout by the Chiefs' assistant coach, which, spoiler alert, that's illegal. You cannot do that. Illegal timeout. That saves, I think, the first half for the Chiefs against the Ravens. Can't do that. One-sided ejection. You guys remember that Trent Williams fight with one of the Chiefs players? I don't remember. Was it Juju? I don't remember. The Chiefs player initiates. He's smacking around Trent Williams. Trent Williams retaliates, and then Trent Williams gets ejected. No repercussions for the Chiefs. They move on. Boo. Same game. Nick Bosa. Remember that guy getting held into oblivion. Horrible. And that's something that the Chiefs kind of got used to, I think, throughout the season. They can get away with a lot of holding this year. It's sad. It sucks. The insane... Oh, you guys remember the Falcons game. Atlanta. Driving. Going to win the game. Kirk Cousins throws into the end zone looking for Kyle Pitts. There is the most obvious pass interference that you've ever seen in your life all over the place. No call. Resulting in an L for Atlanta. A failed fourth down. It was 4th and 20, I think, for the Chiefs versus the Bengals. Remember that? There's a failed fourth down conversion. And about 20 minutes later... Here comes a flag in favor of the Chiefs that saves them in that game versus the Bengals. It just happens over and over and over and over again. So Chargers fans, all I'm saying is hold on to your butts, man. There's going to be some shenanigans. There's going to be some calls that we don't like, and maybe even every little call, like a little holding here and there, a little, controversy here and there, like even the littlest bit is going to be magnified and blown up because of the stigma revolving around the officiating and the Kansas City Chiefs. But you are going to see some nonsense. It's something that I hope the Chargers can overcome. Most teams in the NFL have not been able to overcome it, but you never know. You never know. This could make a very difficult challenge for the Chargers this week, even if we find a way to move the ball offensively, even if we hold down the fort against Patrick Mahomes. Just be prepared to see some nonsense. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And for Chiefs fans, if you're butthurt about it, that just means I'm even more so correct in your minds, okay? So I hope you fight me in the comments regarding the meme refereeing and officiating of the Chiefs games this season, okay? All right, moving on. We have, meanwhile, the Chargers. So while the Kansas City Chiefs are kind of stumbling, fumbling, trying to figure out the season, squeaking by 11-1. Meanwhile, the Chargers are on the rise, and this is why I think the narrative of this game is so important. Not so much that we got to go in there and dominate and win, but so much that, hey, the Chargers are here to play, man. Watch out, Chiefs. I feel like for more than, 5-6 years now, the Chiefs versus the Chargers, it's been a matchup where it's like, hey, Chiefs don't have really much to sweat about. We got a couple of close games, couple of, maybe wins, but really for the most part, the Chiefs have kind of ran the show versus the Chargers. This is where, meanwhile, in Chargers land, you see a difference that does result in a more dangerous opponent for Kansas City, right? Jim Harbaugh's efforts slowly ushering in a legitimate threat in LA. Their last matchup, again, versus Kansas City this year, which was very, very early in the season. The Chargers were still fighting their footing in this rebranding, retooling, roster. What's the offense? What's Justin Herbert? Justin Herbert really hadn't found his footing in the season. He was still hurt at that point of the year. Very early in that matchup, the Chargers made it very close. You guys remember the score of that game? 17-10. The Chargers still almost found a way to win that one. Now, are we ready now, in this moment, to take down the Chiefs? I don't know. I would say we're a lot closer than we were earlier in the year, and earlier in the year it was a one-score deficit. But the bottom feels like it's about to fall out for the Kansas City Chiefs and just running the division, running the NFL. Sure, they got their 11-1 record right now. Sure, this season looks good, but man, I want to see a statement by the Chargers by the end of this game. Win or lose, watch out. Here come the Jim Harbaugh Chargers, and y'all better have a change of attitude, as the seasons progress and as that whole era progresses. This game in particular, defense to the rescue. Now the Chiefs, again, they've been kind of meh on offense this season, and let alone the last few weeks. They had one good game versus the Panthers, right? Who hasn't had a good game versus the Panthers? We had a great game versus the Panthers. But outside of that, man, you take a look at their matchups versus Denver. They scored, it was like 16 points, right? Yeah, 16 points on Denver. They scored 21 points on Buffalo, which resulted in a loss that week. And then, of course, only scoring 19 on the Vegas Raiders. They almost dropped that game at the last second if it hadn't been for a bogus flag. Chargers, they're going to be a tougher defense than all of those teams, right? Allowing just 17 points in their last matchup versus the Chiefs. The Chargers are first in the league in terms of scoring defense. It's going to probably be the biggest point of emphasis in the Chargers' chance to win this game. They need to hold down the fort defensively versus Patrick Mahomes. You let Mahomes get going. You let the offense of the Chiefs get going. I really don't know what your odds are in winning this game. If you let Patrick Mahomes get hot, I'm sorry. It feels like that's a runaway win for KC, but it just doesn't feel like that kind of defense for the Chargers this year. It feels like they've been as consistent of a defense as I've ever seen for this team. And I think we're headed in a very similar direction to last week, or the last matchup, where it's not going to be a whole lot of points. 27 total points scored last matchup. I think we're kind of heading towards the same direction. And the defense could probably be the biggest reason why we win this game. A big thing that I do think helps the Chargers defense in helping win in this game too is Patrick Mahomes this season. This stat kind of shocked me, dude. But it's indicative of the kind of season that Patrick Mahomes is having this year. Mahomes has thrown just 19 touchdowns to 11 interceptions this year. Wow. Again, remember what I was talking about, being the opponent on the other side, looking for opportunities to exploit weaknesses? That's got to be one of them. Sure, Mahomes has looked better lately, right? Only throwing 2 interceptions over his last 3 games, sure. But still, the Chargers have shown to be a very dangerous team when given opportunities for takeaways. They've been awesome this year. They're tied 4th in the league in interceptions. 13 picks for the Chargers. Oh, it feels good to be nice in that stat again. This team is especially dangerous when they're generating pressure. By the way, that's probably the biggest detriment to Patrick Mahomes these last several weeks. Mahomes has been sacked 20 times in the last 5 games. 20! Insane! Chargers, meanwhile, are tied for 6th in the league in sacks with 36. I'd bet Mahomes is good for at least 1 interception, handful of sacks this week. And it's a good opportunity. Again, you're looking for opportunities of weakness. That is one of them. Let's make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable. Let's get him out of the pocket. Let's force bad throws. The Chargers have been really good at that. That last matchup versus Cousins, they generated how many errant throws born out of panic from Kirk Cousins that resulted in, what was it, like 4 interceptions that game? A lot. Defensive line, even though they only generated 1 sack last week, they were very much so credited for the huge turnover game that the Chargers defense enjoyed. I can see that happening again here versus Patrick Mahomes. Let's get an interception or 2 out of this guy and a handful of sacks. I think that really does benefit the Chargers' opportunities to win and run away with this one. Or maybe survive this one. Meanwhile, on the other side, now Patrick Mahomes, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions this season. Not a whole lot of offense in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert, on the other side, is as efficient as you can ask of a quarterback in the National Football League. 13 touchdowns to just 1 interception this year is absolutely ludicrous. Justin Herbert is as efficient and safe of a quarterback as you can ask for right now. He's actually on an 11-game streak without throwing an interception. 11 games. Of course, I hope to have not, jinxed that, knock on wood. But he's joining very elite company in that stat. Tom Brady. I think he's tied with Tom Brady now with the longest streak in NFL history. 11 games without throwing an interception. Of course, you have to start so many games as well. In a row, I should say. Starting in a row, no interception. Insane. Sure, he's not been as crazy of a production quarterback as in years past. Sure, we were all used to Justin Herbert throwing 300-400 yards a game, several touchdowns. But he's getting it done, man. And he's winning. Justin Herbert is winning. Now, I do have to admit, however, his last few games have been a little disappointing, especially when you take a look at the defenses he was playing up against. He logged just 147 yards versus Atlanta, terrible passing defense, and 218 yards versus Baltimore, maybe the worst passing defense. These are awful, awful defenses where I would expect Justin Herbert to throw for close to 300 yards, if not more. That is a little concerning. But this matchup does offer a little something extra, right? Kansas City, they're offering something that Herbert does thrive in. Sure, a middling passing defense, nothing special, but a Sunday Night Football matchup that could help skew things in the right direction for him a little bit. Herb tends to go crazy in these games. Last time it was the Bengals, right? He had 300 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game. His efficiency and ability to score on turnover opportunities as good as any other quarterback in the league. We saw that a lot in that game. And I think those are also key elements to this game, too. Those are key components to the Chargers finding a way to win this week. Generate turnovers, capitalize on those opportunities. Again, a lot of times Chargers fans hate to see this, but Cam Dicker, as great of a kicker as we've ever had, those also count for me. Let's get out there and find a way to make Kansas City Chiefs life uncomfortable and find a way to get Justin Herbert going and get him on a roll, because I think that does help the Chargers out tremendously. Now, one thing I will say, Chargers run. This is going to be something that's going to be tough this week, and it's one that I think is going to maybe hold against us a win more than any other element this week. This is where it gets tricky for me. The Chargers, they want to run the football, but Kansas City has a great run defense, and we ran into this the last time that we played them. Last time we played them with J.K. Dobbins, we only generated 55 yards of rushing offense. That was not great. And now here we are without J.K. Dobbins, who J.K. feels sorely missed. I've said this a couple of times since the Baltimore game. The down that he was injured, that he went down with injury. It just feels like the offense never really found its footing again after that, after missing J.K. Dobbins. It kind of felt that way a little bit last week, too, versus Atlanta. I hope they have found a way to massage that this week. Maybe get Kamani Vidal involved a little bit more, and see what we can do with Gus. Gus Edwards is actually a pretty efficient running back. He rushes for over 5 a carry last week. But we just can't get it going for some reason. So hopefully that's not too big of a detriment against the Chargers. I don't know how we supplement the run game if we can't get it going. Maybe short passes again. Again, Vidal could be a pretty big element to that. But this feels like a pretty big obstacle for the Chargers. So I'm hoping that they're able to find a way to overcome it. And it may end up coming off the back of this guy right here, Ladd McConkey, versus the world. There's reason to believe that he will be playing this game. He's a tough dude. He's been very good in every single game that he's played this year, especially the last 5 weeks or so. I think he's a big reason why the Chargers win or lose this game. We need Ladd McConkey. We need the defense. And hopefully some other receivers step up. QJ has been more or less disappointing the last few weeks. Josh Palmer, a little non-existent. I'm hoping it's not all in the back of Ladd McConkey, but we're going to need him in the defense, especially this week. So in conclusion, Chiefs are not invincible. Chiefs aren't the same Chiefs of years past. 11-1 is a bit of a mirage. There's a way for us to wedge ourselves in there, grab a dub, and make a statement win here. That being said, what do I think? Director, gun to your head, what is your score prediction? My score prediction for this week will be Chargers 13, the Chiefs 16. I do think the Chiefs edge out just barely another win versus the Chargers. But again, it still does paint a picture of, hey, man, you guys barely survived last time versus the Chargers 17-0. This time it's only 3. And hopefully we see in the postseason where we can make that win, that game very close. And a game that counts much more than a game that we're seeing right now. That's kind of what I'm looking at right here. And that's actually something that I did predict earlier in the season, that the Chargers can't find a way to win versus the Chiefs in the regular season. But come the postseason, if they do match up, find a very, very big and surprising win there. And that's something that I think would make a very cool narrative for Jim Harbaugh in his inaugural season. And a very cool statement win, hopefully later down the road, that does usher in a new perspective of what the AFC West is going forward. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll catch you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Let's go sack Patrick Mahomes, baby. I want Thule to eat this week.